With that being said, you big dummies, you getting paid now.
Right.
Everybody now has an opportunity to pull up their chair and have a seat.
Over the past year, we've seen Sheryl Swoopes make strange claims about Caitlin Clark. She said Caitlin is a 25-year-old playing against teenagers, that her rookie season isn't impressive, and that no one wants to play with her. It felt like the criticism just kept coming.
Some of your peers, they will recognize, her game, but they won't recognize her impact.
Right.
How can you separate the two? It's kind of hard,
right? Jax, you're absolutely right. And I was like, come on, you big dummies.
Then, Cheryl Miller stepped in. The basketball legend and former coach of Caitlin Clark took to the All the Smoke podcast, where she hit back hard, calling Sheryl Swoopes a big dummy and tearing apart her false claims. Miller put Swoopes in her place, and her strong defense of Caitlin Clark has sparked some exciting talk about the future of the Indiana Fever. Fans can't stop buzzing. Are you ready to hear more? Let's dive in.
3-time Player of the Year, 2-time National Championship, 2-time Tournament MVP, first woman to dunk in an organized game, gold medalist. Thank you for making time. Welcome to the show, Cheryl Miller.
Before we dive into what Cheryl Miller had to say, have you ever wondered why a basketball legend like Sheryl Swoopes seems so focused on tearing down the WNBA's newest star, Caitlin Clark? Let's take a closer look at the strange campaign Swoopes has waged against Clark, starting from her college days all the way through her rookie season.
Let's also talk about how much more experience that gives you over other players coming in, right? So people say, dang, like he or she's killing them, but you have a 25-year-old playing against a 20-year-old.
It all began when Swoopes made some wildly incorrect claims about Caitlin Clark's college career. In one of her most outrageous statements, Swoopes suggested Clark was a 25-year-old playing against 20-year-olds while at Iowa. The truth? Clark was actually 22 and in her fourth year, just like many other college seniors. When people pointed out this mistake, Swoopes tried to backpedal, claiming it was just exaggeration due to COVID-related eligibility rules. But that excuse didn't hold up.
Caitlin Clark right now probably takes about 40 shots a game.
Carry on.
I know you like that.
Hell yeah.
I said that because when she comes to the league, regardless of what team she goes to that has vets on that team, she probably ain't gonna get 40 shots a game.
But Swoopes wasn't done yet. She went on to claim that Clark was taking 40 shots a game, painting her as a selfish, high-volume shooter. The reality? Clark actually averaged 22.7 shots per game. What makes this claim especially ironic is that Swoopes herself averaged 19.2 shots per game in her senior year, just 3 fewer than Clark. Talk about throwing stones in a glass house. Then, as Clark approached the all-time NCAA scoring record, Swoopes changed her approach, questioning the legitimacy of the achievement by suggesting Clark needed a 5th year to break it.
You asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player set it.
Okay.
Right? So if Kelsey Plum set that record in 4 years, well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record. So is it truly a broken record?
This was completely false. Clark broke the record in just 4 years, exactly the same amount of time as other college players. Swoopes conveniently ignored the fact that the COVID eligibility rule would have allowed Clark a 5th year, but she chose not to take it. When Clark entered the WNBA, Swoopes boldly predicted she wouldn't dominate in the league. But as Clark quickly started breaking rookie assist records and proving herself as one of the league's top playmakers, Swoopes suddenly went silent. The numbers speak for themselves. Clark finished her rookie season averaging 19.2 points and a league-leading 8.4 assists per game, shutting down all the doubters and securing Rookie of the Year honors.
Didn't say she wouldn't be good. What I said was I didn't think Caitlin or Angel would come into the league and dominate immediately, which I don't think either of them did.
Respectfully, there is absolutely no way, even when we're trying to sit here and play semantics about dominating, there's no way that anyone could ever leave this season in saying that both Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese didn't dominate. You would have to further explain what dominance means for you to not sit here and say that a player who is leading the league in assists while averaging 19 to 20 points didn't dominate that season.
Perhaps the most telling moment came when Swoopes appeared on Angel Reese's podcast. There, she kept undermining Clark, all while insisting she didn't dislike her. It was a classic case of saying one thing while clearly doing the opposite.
I've known Cheryl since she was in college. I helped do her shoe deal with Nike in 1993, took her to her first SBs. I've known Cheryl, I've coached her, have a lot of respect for her. I called her when Caitlin was still playing at Iowa and she had just broken Maravich's record. And it was all over the place, as you and I have discussed, that there was this quote by Cheryl that said, Caitlin was, 25 years old. She was, however old, 24 years old. She was a fifth-year senior. Right. She was taking 40 shots a game. Her records were illegitimate.
The basketball world started to take notice of this pattern, and eventually, Swoopes was removed from broadcasting a Fever game. She was replaced by Nancy Lieberman, who didn't hesitate to call out the false information being spread about the rookie sensation.
I got off the treadmill and I called her as a friend and I said, you can say whatever you want. You can have your own opinion about anybody, but you do have to get the statistics right. I mean, facts matter. And if you just get ahead of this and just say, hey, I made a mistake on my numbers, then this thing is over and everybody respects you for your opinion. And, you might like Boston. I might like the Yankees. It's okay to have difference of opinions. Well, she got upset with me on the phone, and I was like, Cheryl, I'm not doing anything to hurt you. I'm just sharing. We're talking. And so our relationship it pretty much is not happening at this point. I tried to talk to her at the Final Four. Right. She didn't want to talk to me. My life's going to be good or great with or without Sheryl Swoopes in my life.
The basketball world was waiting for someone with real credibility to step into the Caitlin Clark conversation. And that moment came when Cheryl Miller walked into the All the Smoke podcast studio. She didn't hold back, lighting up the critics. What happens when a basketball legend who's actually coached Clark decides she's had enough of the nonsense? You get one of the most genuine and powerful defenses we've seen in women's basketball.
Jax, you're absolutely right. And I was like, come on, you big dummies. Is she getting hyped? Yes. But she was in the backyard. She was putting in the same time, sometimes maybe more than you were.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I can't fault her for what she was given.
Miller didn't just offer casual support for Clark. She came in with fire and precision, delivering a message that only someone of her stature could. Her now viral comment aimed at critics like Swoopes said it all in just 2 words, "Come on, you big dummies." The studio erupted, but Miller was just getting started. She passionately defended Clark's work ethic, speaking with the authority of someone who's seen it up close. This wasn't just another talking head defending Clark, this was Cheryl Miller, one of the greatest to ever play the game, directly calling out the hypocrisy surrounding the young star. She pointed out something the critics conveniently ignored.
Look, as much as she was given, you can't tell me if that door would have swung the other way where she didn't live up to the hype.
Right.
Come on, folks are still waiting for her to fall.
Exactly.
Come on.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, you big dummies, you getting paid now.
It's the uncomfortable truth that Clark's critics don't want to admit. Her presence has elevated the entire league, including the paychecks of those criticizing her.
You recently coached the WNBA All-Star game. You spent some time with Caitlin Clark.
Best coaching job ever.
Best coaching job
Best coaching job ever.
Being around Caitlin Clark, how was the experience for her? She's such a big star. I mean, the sky's the limit for her. To be around her, just talk about the type of person she is, how much she loves the game.
I'm going to be honest because it needs to be said. I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her. Mm-hmm. I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my color.
Yeah.
What makes Miller's defense so powerful is that she's not speaking from speculation, she's speaking from direct experience. After coaching Clark in the 2024 WNBA All-Star Game, Miller had a front-row seat to evaluate Clark's game beyond just the highlight reels. And what she discovered even surprised her.
I can't imagine this young lady, I don't want to use hate, but despised. Mm-hmm. And people just having, she brought some on herself a little bit because she's cocky for a good reason.
Mm-hmm. Confident.
And I love that about her. But to watch the dynamics and the media, they had their narrative. Mm-hmm. And I was pleased and proud to see the narrative wasn't the truth.
Miller was both pleased and proud to see that the narrative wasn't true. She revealed the truth, effectively dismantling months of media spin in just one sentence. Then she went even deeper, offering rare insight into what truly makes Clark special.
Watching her pass, and I didn't know how talented she was and how well she sees the game in a 3D version, thinker. Defensively, a lot better than I thought and gave her credit for. So watching her and just spending a little time. And one thing, guys, that I've learned is to step back and let these kids be themselves.
Behind Miller's technical breakdown of Clark's skills is something much deeper, a genuine emotional bond formed during Clark's toughest moments. When the Fever finally secured their first win of the 2024 season, Miller didn't just congratulate Clark, she offered her something few others did, unconditional support when the rookie needed it most.
He was getting hit with everything left and right, and I just said, I hugged her, I said, I'm so proud of you. I go, savor this. Use this as a formula. I said, but keep being you. I said, no matter what, keep being you.
That embrace between Miller and Clark after Indiana's first victory wasn't just a casual moment between basketball figures, it was a turning point, showing how isolated Clark had felt during the storm of criticism surrounding her entry into the league. Miller recalled the raw emotion of that moment. I gave her the biggest hug I could. When she saw me, she said, oh man, finally, somebody who's on my side. She was getting hit from every direction.
Heavy as a crown that she's wearing right now.
Right.
And it wasn't something that she self-anointed herself. It's something that's been placed on her head. And I hope people understand that. But it's everything that she's dealing with. And I gave her the biggest hug that I could. And when she saw me, she's like, oh man, finally somebody I see that's on my side.
Right, they can relate.
The one thing that I said to her, and she was heading into her senior year, was have fun. No matter all the static, just make sure you find that quiet place.